Welcome to the Uncomfortable Conversations podcast, the untold stories of the 3HO Kundalini Yoga community. I'm your host, Guru Nishan. I was born and raised in 3HO, and the people of our community matter to me. So I started this podcast with several intentions in mind, and I read them at the beginning of every episode. Number one, to break the veil of silence that has long permeated and continues to strangle the 3HO Kundalini Yoga community in the name of neutrality. Number two, to validate and help clarify the complex feelings of those who joined this lifestyle, were born and raised into it, and or who have practiced or taught Kundalini Yoga. Number three, to encourage active listening to uncomfortable conversations from our community as a revolutionary act of self and collective healing. Number four, to let survivors know that we see them, we believe them, we love them, and we will fight for their truth to be addressed. Number five, to let teachers who are denying, gaslighting, or spiritually bypassing know that what they are doing is willfully ignorant and re-traumatizing victims. Number six, to illuminate the inherent racism, homophobia, cultural misappropriation, and exploitation that perpetuates the teachings, 3HO lifestyle, and overall community ethos. Number seven, to stop the perpetuation of gaslighting and victim shaming by naming it for what it is. Number eight, to dismantle internalized shame, guilt, toxic positivity, and light-washing mentality. Number nine, to honor all of the parts of ourselves that have been forgotten or silenced. Number 10, to honor every body that has come through our community, both named and unnamed. Number 11, to encourage people to do their own research, process their own emotions, get somatic therapy and other therapy and support as needed, draw your own conclusions, and be critical thinkers rather than just blindly follow anyone. Please remember that your story matters. Please share it when you're ready. We're here to listen and support you. I want to welcome today's guest. Her name is Michelle Melito, also known as Saraswati Kaur, as a second generation of 3HO. She was born in Colorado in 1982 to Darshan Singh and Kaur. She has two older second generation siblings who were Saraswati Kamal and GuruMantra. At the age of 2, her family moved to the Espanola Ashram. At age 5, her family left 3HO and her parents divorced. She grew up in Albuquerque, where she suffered parental neglect and other heavily traumatic experiences. At age 15, she turned back to the only good thing she thought she knew, 3HO and Yogi Bhajan. In 1999-2000, she attended Miri Piri Academy in India and also lived with Yogi Bhajan on the ranch for about 1 month before moving to the Phoenix Ashram for several years, working for the head of the ashram. She has many, many layers to her story, and she's here to share it with us today. Saraswati has always been artistic and is currently enrolled in cosmetology school. So I want to welcome you today. Please don't forget to unmute yourself.
Hi.
Hi, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Tell me why you feel it's important to share your story.
Well, these podcasts have been very helpful for me, and hearing how other people process it, and I want to share it with other people to help them as well. Yeah, it's important. So
I want to thank you for reaching out to me and saying how much the podcast and listening to them has supported you in your process, and also has given you courage to speak out and share your experience as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm very grateful to them. I love Miri Piri's podcast. I love Dudham's podcast. I love Little Dude's podcast. They were very touching. So I'm here hopefully if I could help one person, that's worth it. You know, if it touches one person, then I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thank you for your courage to share. So your story's quite unique in that you were quite young when you were in the Dharma, and then several years not in your childhood. So do you want to, you had mentioned that you remember a lot from when you were young. So do you want to share your early years? Because your parents left when you were 5, which is quite young, but what do you remember from your early days?
So I remember going to preschool in Espanola, and we had a Gurdwara next to it that was like in a trailer. And then the Gurdwara now was up the hill a little ways. That was the children's Gurdwara. And I remember giving out prasad when I was like 5, and I stopped and I started eating it because it's so good. I remember a lot. Like I remember Hari Dedham being pregnant with Avtar and filling her belly, and fighting with Saraswati, and playing with Gurdedam Hariarchi's brother on the tire swing. And we actually taught each other how to read. His brother had taught him bad words like boob and penis, and we had blocks with consonants and blocks with vowels in these two separate things. And so me and Gurdedam stayed in on recess to spell boobs and penises. And so we learned how to read. We taught ourselves how to read in preschool. And so I was reading at a 3rd grade level by the time that I was in kindergarten. Yeah. And I remember rollerblading in Ramdas Puri. Is that what it's called? Wait,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
where we do tantric?
Where
we
the
do
solstice. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
solstices are held.
Yeah. And then when my parents were divorcing, we were hiding from my dad one time, and we were staying up there. And there were a lot of dandelions back then. My mom was really sad, so I picked her a dandelion, and she was like smiled about it, and then she was like crying again. So then I went and picked her more, but I couldn't keep her happy. So I filled up a giant bag of dandelions that I couldn't even lift. I was to bring it to her because I wanted to keep her happy.
This is your little 5-year-old self wanting to soothe your mom during your parents' divorce.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I remember when we had Gurdwara in that trailer, there was a bathroom right next to it, and I remember we were playing there during Gurdwara, and Yogi Bhajan yelled at us, and he was yelling at us. So I was always really afraid of him because of how much he would yell. And I remember one time he was like riding his bicycle around the ashram, and he and my dad says, go thank him for everything. And I wanted to thank him for everything, but I was so scared. He goes, thank him for everything. And then I remember my dad used to go to sadhana a lot, like he never missed. And he always took me with him because when I was born, Yogi Bhajan said I was a great warrior.
Okay.
And so he gave me the name Sarabjit. And my dad thought that was super significant because he didn't say anything about my sisters or anyone else in our family. So my dad thought I was special because of that. And so he took me to sadhana with him every morning. I was his, like, the one he took.
Oh, wow.
So I remember waking up, and one time everyone was dancing in a yoga set, and I started dancing and everyone was laughing at me. I remember Yogi Bhajan leading sadhana once in a while. But I might be wrong on that because people did look alike. Like it could have been Harmanderjot's dad, and I don't know if I would have known that, you know.
Sure.
But yeah, I remember. So we lived where we lived in the little house. We were very poor. We lived in a tiny little house right across the street from that. I don't know how. It was Siri Vades. Is that his name? The recorder? No.
I think so, but I'm not
Okay.
so sure.
Well, it was where his store was, the guy that used to record everything. And
Otto's father.
Oftar's father, yeah. So that building was where we lived. And I remember there being ladies' camp right across the street, and my sister Saraswati coming over and saying how Yogi Bhajan was yelling at the women, and they were all crying, taking off their makeup. He was yelling at them for wearing makeup, and they were all crying. Um, yeah, I remember a lot. So,
Can you
and
give
I
us
cherished it because when my family did leave, I thought that was like they were wrong for leaving something so sacred and beautiful. And because I got neglected after that, I thought that it was really special. You know, I thought 3HO was, I wanted to go to India. You know, I was begging my parents to go when I was 5. My sister went when she was 9 for 1 year. And I drank the cool, like I was the one, like
before
when we
you
all,
before you go on, actually, but you're talking about the time, like you're young, you're under 5 because you were born into the Dharma until 5 is when your parents left,
mhm.
and your older sister had gone to India. At what age were you when she went to India, and what sister went?
She went when she was 9.
Okay, and just for a year, you said?
Good mantra.
Guru
Yeah,
Mantra.
she went for 1 year, and so she went when she was 9, and she's 5 years older than me, so I was like 4.
And Saraswati didn't go.
No.
Okay. So then when you're and then who were your parents in terms of like what did they do around the ranch or like around the
Oh,
Espanola? Like give
so
us context.
so they were from the Denver ashram originally, and my mom hated it because Hari Singh and Harikar Bird would make them like clean houses, and so they clean houses all day long. They would drive them around from house to house, and then at the end of the week, they wouldn't barely have enough money to buy toothpaste and stuff. And they were living in a nice house far away, so my mom didn't like it. My dad really liked Hari Singh, but my dad was able to do more things for him, so he kind of got a privileged status with him because my dad could fix TVs and do a lot of technology stuff.
And whoever you mentioned, uh,
Hari Singh,
Hari
he was
Singh,
the head of, they were
head
the
of,
head of the ashram there.
got it. So the head of what Colorado, what city in Colorado?
Denver.
In Denver.
Yeah.
Okay. So they were the heads of Denver. Your parents, for lack of a better word, were like the peasants, right? The worker
Yeah.
bees of the community,
Mm-hmm.
because we're seeing that formula in many communities, which is why I'm pointing it out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so your dad had a bit of a better of a relationship because he could do favors that then got him favors from the people that
Yeah.
were a bit more important and ran things.
Yes. Only in Colorado for him. So when we moved to Espanola,
But that was the initial tension happening between your mom and dad. Obviously, that's in
yeah,
Colorado.
yeah.
So your mom's not liking it. So then why did they move to New Mexico? Why did they take you all?
So my mom, I mean, I don't know that I know the
Yeah.
exact
So,
story,
and that's okay. If you don't know
I've
the
asked,
context.
yeah, I mean, my dad cheated on my mom a lot too. So they were always like, and my mom would stay with him. And so I was told once that they moved around because they were running into people that my dad slept with too much. So
I want to just flag that and thank you for sharing or disclosing that, because I also have had that experience in my personal story. And that is also what we're seeing, at least what I'm noticing in a lot of the formula, or that's happened to a lot of people in different ashrams in different contexts. So thank you for giving us that context. So then you're in New Mexico, again, you're little, and your dad and mom are doing what in the community in Espanola?
my dad fixed everybody's TVs. And my mom was the principal of the preschool that I went to. So she was running the preschool at that time.
Okay. Obviously, you said not making money, quite poor
No,
still.
very, very poor, very
Okay.
poor. Yeah.
And did you get any understanding? I mean, obviously you're 5, but did your parents tell you anything about why they were leaving at the time?
So I remember it.
Oh, okay.
I was playing in the front yard with, I don't know who, maybe a girl named Hetty Kid, and she was my best friend. And all of a sudden my dad came home with a shaved head and a shaved beard. And you know, when you're a little kid, like my grandpa had a shaved beard and it hurt to kiss me. So I was like, it was shocking, and I was scared. I didn't want him to kiss me and hurt my face, you know? And he told my mom it was a cold, and my mom was sick of it. So she was ready to leave. And so sick of the way, you know, we're treated, like not making any money. Oh, she was upset she could never fit into any of the cliques, you know. She was always an outsider, always basically like untouchables. I mean, that's how our family was treated. And so she didn't ask him why. I think she was trying to save her marriage too. So when he cut his hair and shaved his beard, he said, we have to leave. We got kicked out. And so she took us to cut our hair and change our names. And she tried to stay with him. And then he left her. He threw her out. He threw us out of the house. So like maybe a month. I don't know how long. I mean, my mom with 3 kids and no education and no job. Yeah.
So you know that her time there, like in general, she was getting tired of being treated poorly, like, and like this was like a common thing in your household that was discussed or spoken about, like enough for you to feel it in the community at that time.
I didn't know that. No, I mean, I was 5, so I didn't know that she was feeling that way. No, but I always, as an adult, I thought my dad was so much more spiritual than my mom, because my mom didn't feel any, like my mom didn't see it, you know? So I thought I put my dad on a pedestal for, you know, taking me to sadhana and meditating as much as he did.
But then when he cut his hair and came home, that was must have just been a crazy shock. And then you're told to immediately cut your hair. I mean, what's happening now for you?
Well, they told us to act, so then I get neglected, right? I mean, when I listen to all these other podcasts and I hear about the neglect, that I realized that it wasn't just me that got neglected. Like they were brainwashed to neglect us. And so my mom was kind of, you know, she's a very sweet woman, very kind woman, but she just checked out mentally. And she was like, she told us to act American. And I'm like, I'm 5. I'm like, I don't know what that is. So they let us pick our names. And my sister Lisa picked her name from Weird Science, or GuruMantra did. And then Saraswati picked Sarah. And I was going to pick Cindy because I was reading. And there was a book in the preschool about Cindy the bear. And my dad goes, no, you should pick the name Michelle. And then he would sing the song from the Beatles to me. So that became my name. And then when they said to act American, you know, and my mom was ashamed of it. And my sisters would just act like whatever they saw on MTV. And I'm like little watching this, and I'm watching them create a whole new identity overnight of what they wanted to be. But I'm like, I didn't know. Like, to me, I was Sarabjit still, you know, like I didn't have that same desire to be like people in MTV. Like I wasn't watching it like they were. I was too little.
Must have just been so shocking.
Yeah.
Is there, I know you have a lot to share when we move into what happened next. Is there more you want to share from the early years and memories from when you were under 5 and when your parents were in 3HO at that time? I mean, it's okay. We can always circle back around.
No, that's good. I mean, I was mischievous. I just remember when the preschool teacher, I forget her name.
This is a Khalsa school. So this is a little local Dharmic Khalsa school, right?
Yeah, I can't remember her name, but we were doing collages, and I understood what the concept was. And I remember looking around going, oh, none of the kids get the concept of this collage. And we weren't allowed to cut the National Geographics, but I knew where the African boobs were. So I went into the bathroom and I made a collage with African boobs and I glued it onto the wall. So that was like, I was very mischievous as a child.
Well, I'm curious because you've shared two early childhood stories of writing like boobs and then cutting out boobs. And so as a child, do you remember this being like a big deal and like getting reactions, or like what did that, like where did that come from, or what do you remember about that?
Getting reactions, no, I just liked it. I don't know. I think I can't, I don't know. Yeah.
I actually think it's quite natural for kids to explore this way. I'm just curious if like you had memories of
I don't remember
what
the
that was
reactions.
causing.
No, it wasn't for attention. I was too little, like, to. No, I was ashamed of it because I remember later, I got in trouble for gluing it on the wall, and then later on, I saw it next to the toilet at home, and I went, oh no, my parents know I made it, because it was at home, and I was so embarrassed, but they never talked to me about it. And then later on, I realized, like, my dad kept his Playboys by the toilet, so he was probably like jacking off to it.
He didn't hide them. They were just right there for you all to see.
The Playboys? Yeah, they were always like next to the toilet.
And this is when they had already left, or this is during
This is before. Yeah, this is
all
during.
during while going to sauna. His Playboys are right over there.
Oh, no. That was late. That was later. I saw Playboys. I probably not. My mom probably wouldn't have let him.
I was like, that would be a hard.
I don't think so. Yeah.
My dad's Playboys were at least hidden, under the car mat or under the bed,
No, but he always kept them as an adult, or as I got older, or when he left my mom. I don't know. He always had Playboys by the toilet. So to me, he was enjoying my collage.
Got it. Okay, so yeah, that's a little later. So
that's just.
So your parents leave. This is obviously like shocking, confusing. Your older sisters are kind of, more able to get into that, I suppose. But tell us then what happens. He leaves your mom. Oh, you're muted now.
So my dad threw my mom out, and she didn't want to go home to Colorado to be with her parents because they were upset about her marrying my dad and joining a cult. And so she decided to take us to Albuquerque and start over with no one, no support. She became a waitress, and my dad didn't pay very much child support. So we struggled, and I got neglected. And so I didn't know how to, she got me to school in kindergarten every day, but then after that, I was getting myself to school every day, and I was wearing the same clothes every day and not brushing my teeth until like teachers like treated me bad, or like they would say like I got treated bad by adults, like judging me when I was innocent a lot, and then when I was 12 or 11, I made friends with a girl down the street who taught me how to shower and wash myself.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And my sister was a huge bully, and I didn't realize how much that was a big part of 3HO too. So I didn't just get neglected, I got bullied horribly by my sister, Saraswati. And we still are not friends to this day.
Wow.
These memories in the ashram of my sister Saraswati were she made me eat her boogers so I could hang out with her and some other girls. And then she just put me down constantly and beat me up a lot. I mean, I was pigeon-toed, so, you know, in school, when we'd be walking to school, she'd be walking behind me with other kids, they would all be making fun of me for the way I walked. I mean, it was just so extremely cruel. Like, I try to tell people about like the sibling abuse in my family, and I'm like, no, it was unusually cruel. Like, yeah, I know other families fight, but ours was like it was more extreme, it seemed, because it was like she really did hate me, you know.
Mm.
But she probably would have been great in India. She would have done really well.
Mm. You're cutting out again. Recording. So yeah, so your mom's single mom, she's raising you, obviously a lot of neglect. You're learning to shower at 11. Then what? Did your mom get remarried yet?
My mom got remarried when I was 14. Yeah, 14. And so she marries someone successful, a successful lawyer. And I think my life is all of a sudden going to get better. You know, he was giving me attention, you know, is like the parental, I craved it. I craved attention from adults. And so he was like, I was into art. So he was getting me art supplies and taking me to art museums. He took me to the Guggenheim, you know. I was, you know, I thought my life was about to get better. But then, like, my bedroom was in the basement. And then every week, about once a week, I would wake up with someone in the room or in my bed, and I couldn't move my body. I was so scared. And I thought it was a ghost because I would try to move, and I couldn't. And so I thought it was in my body possessing me. And then I thought, there were times when I was like, it was too real to be just a ghost, you know. I never confronted anyone until about it, that I think it was my stepdad. I never confronted anyone until about 2 years ago, that I came to the realization that it wasn't just a ghost and it wasn't normal.
Yeah.
My bed would be kicked. I would hear things being walked across the room. I woke up one time and there was like a red light in the room, and I heard someone like pissing behind my bed. I woke up one time, there was a sexual dream one time that I can't remember it. And so when I hear other people talk about sex abuse when they can't remember it, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I don't know what happened that time. I really don't.
Yeah.
Um,
And that it's important that
but I
we
felt someone's arm come off of me and kiss me on the cheek. I mean, it was creepy and it was so scary. And that was why I was like desperate to leave the house, because I didn't sleep. I would lay there awake trying to stay still so that the ghost didn't know that I was awake, that it woke me up. I would try to, so I was sleep deprived a lot. And I begged my mom to like let me go live with a relative, and she wouldn't let me. And then that summer my dad took me to Solstice, because he still like hung out there, or he still talked to a lot of people from 3HO, and he took me to Solstice. And then I saw the Miri Piri, you know, demo, and I was crying, and my dad was like, I'll send you. Okay, I'll send you. So he sent me to India my first year.
So hold on. So when your mom got remarried, and your stepdad started to aggress on you, even as in the memory as a ghost, it's very quite common that sexual trauma survivors in this capacity, we might not remember cognitively, but that our body remembers. And so you started remembering, but in the context of it, you didn't necessarily know it was him. That came much later.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. And also I was groomed and raped by my brother, my half brother.
Which was his son.
No, my dad's son from his first marriage.
Your
So I
dad?
have
Okay.
yeah, I have a half brother, and he was 22, he was 24 and I was 12. And I didn't know him very well. And he was visiting us in Albuquerque, and I asked him for a ride to Espanola so I could go see my dad. And during that time, he convinced me that he was the only one that loved me, and that, you know, I was so neglected that I'm like, oh my God, finally someone loves me. And he was like, come hang out with me in Colorado for a week and I'll drive you back. So he took me to Colorado, showed me, you know, porno mags or whatever. Porno mags. And then we were drinking one night, or he gave me alcohol, and I saw a condom sitting in the kitchen. And then when I was down in the bedroom, I saw it move down by the bed. And then I'm laying there in the bed, like trying to sleep. And he comes in there and he keeps trying to wake me up. And I'm like, I knew what it was for. And so I went along with it because I didn't want to fight it. I didn't have a cell phone. I was in Colorado and I didn't have a lot of confidence, you know, or like the self-esteem to fight anyone. So I went along with it. And so I later got blamed for it. And my dad blamed me for it all the way up until 2 weeks before he died. He said, I fucked my brother.
Wow, that it was of your volition or your consent.
Yeah, well, that's what my brother said.
Even though you're 14.
Because I was 12. And
I'm sorry. You were 12 and he was 22.
Yeah, 24, yeah.
Oh.
No, it's obviously rape, right? Just the age difference. But, you know, but I believed because later on I got told, you know, that I wasn't raped because Yogi Bhajan.
So when you wait for that, because we want to get the context of the time of the story. So at this time though, you don't have much of a relationship with your mom. You don't have much relationship with your dad, but you're trying. So you're leaving from your mom. Your mom hasn't remarried at this point when this happens with your half brother, right? Your mom got remarried at 14. That's where that came from.
He knew about it. My stepdad saw it happen.
About what happened with your brother and you. And then your stepdad kind of moved right into taking that aggressor role with you. Yeah. And having a history of abandonment and neglect, you know, that this makes a lot of sense. Oh.
Also, I think I was smoking weed in the basement, and you know, he hated it. So I think
your stepdad, you mean?
My stepdad hated it. So I think he was like pranking me, he was scaring me on purpose, you know, because he was annoyed too that I was smoking weed in the house. So,
and all sorts of other things that aren't of mental capacity, I'm sure.
Yeah. And what's crazy is he's a lot of like, there's a lot of the people in 3HO that know him because he taught them legal writing. So
hold on, people that you're saying your stepdad who married your mom, who's an attorney, interact with a lot of people in 3HO because they used him for attorney services?
No, he taught at UNM.
He taught at UNM. I see.
Or he teaches.
I see. Oh, the complexity of incest is just wow. So the context I want to get here is that you're going from your mom's house, which isn't very supportive, to you visit your dad's, and your dad was somewhere else. And your dad, even though he had left 3HO and kind of called it a cult, he obviously maintained relationships. Can you give us some understanding about that nature of that?
Yeah, I think he just told me he didn't like Yogi Bhajan. And, but he did have spiritual experiences with his meditation and with Hari Singh, and but he wanted me to like embrace it, but he always tried to steer me away from Yogi Bhajan and just do the meditating and get into the Sikh, not the 3HO side of it.
This is what he would actually say to you.
Yeah, I just thought he was jealous of Yogi Bhajan. You know, I didn't think that you know, he would say, yeah, he's having sex with his secretaries. And I thought, gosh, my dad's such a hypocrite. Like, why is everyone so puritanical? I thought, you know, you can have a relationship with God as a lover, as a friend, as a parent. Like there's many ways you can have a relationship with God. It doesn't have to be just as a father. So I was okay with Yogi Bhajan sleeping with them. I didn't know why everyone was upset about it and why it was such a secret, you know?
Mm, mm. It's so interesting you say that, because I remember as a child assuming that everybody knew that he slept with his secretaries. Like I just kind of thought, and I can't say I ever thought it was abusive or sadistic like we found out, but I definitely, you know, my dad slept around. I felt like there was a culture of the men sleeping around, and I felt like that was just a bit normal and was a part of the hypocrisy. I know I resisted around 15ish, but I kind of, it's like a thing like where the kids see it and everybody else isn't noticing or something, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, how interesting. How interesting. Okay, so you gave us that context. Now it's this one time you're with your dad, he takes you to Solstice. How was that for you? You had not been around the Dharma for a long time, but here you get to reconnect to old friends, be in the atmosphere that obviously a part of you really revered, because it was probably like a semblance of your own in your mind, thinking it was the only good thing in your life after all this abuse that took place after you guys left.
Yeah, I was just really touched by it, and I was crying when I saw the little kids, you know, because I used to be one of them, and I wanted to be a part of that. I felt like it was so sacred and special, and I wanted to go back. And so I begged my dad to send me to India, and he agreed, you know, and so then he sent me.
What year are you, how old are you at this point?
15.
So you go to summer solstice, you get connected to everybody and see the Miri Piri presentation, and just kind of get inspired to be like, I really want to go to school in India. Maybe this is the place for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So I go to school in India, and I was just really excited to see Yogi Bhajan again. I knew he was my spiritual teacher. I believed it, you know. I had read like Be Here Now, and was like trying to find like I always thought, you know, my guru, I know who my guru is. I know who that is. It's Yogi Bhajan. You know, that's home to me. And so I just was really obsessed with him, and not having any other like parent or person, I focused all my attention on him, I guess. So I was into him, you know. And so when when he came to visit the school the first time, we're all standing in formation, and I'm in Gold Squad. Hari Amrit's my platoon commander, and Yogi Bhajan's standing there, or he's sitting in his chair in front of us, and he looks at me and he says, "Hello, sad girl. What is it that you want to say?" And he gave me special attention. And then I went to go see him personally, and he said, "If you give up being sad, I will make your future." And I remember like all his entourage, like I remember Sahaj, like everybody was like shocked, and he shook my hand. And then I told him I didn't want to go home. Like another time he came to visit, I told him I didn't want to go home that summer. And he said I needed new parents. And I remember thinking, I don't want new parents. I just want to be close to you. And then he said, no, come live with me on the ranch. So I thought he read my mind. Well, he did kind of read my mind one time. Yeah. There was one time in India that I was eating cashews and raisins, and my stomach was hurting. And I'm like, I was thinking everything I eat messes up my digestion. So I want to go ask him about it. And I go into the office, and he looked at me, and he looked at Commandant, and he tells Commandant, everything she eats messes up her digestion. And then he said she needs to eat paranthas with like a handful of ajwan seeds and steamed vegetables that are sitting overnight. And it did help. And I still like to eat ajwan paranthas for my digestion. but you know, I was sick with dysentery. I mean, I didn't have the gut bacteria, the same gut as like Simrit, who had been there since she was 5. She could drink water out of the sink. I was on the toilet the whole time I was in India with water squirting out of my butt. I was sick. So, yeah.
So keep telling us.
Yeah, and then I had
special. He tells you, come live with me at the ranch.
Yeah, so I had dreams with him too, and then I found out that the dreams were real. These dreams are real, and he can only come to you if he's really there. And so I had some pretty profound dreams with him. The very first dream I had, he walked out of a room, and I see him, and he walked into another room. And I thought, like, I woke up in the dream, you know? I was like, oh, I became lucid, I felt like. And then the next dream, I'm like, this is while I was in India, my first year, right? I was partying with some friends in Albuquerque in the dream, and he appeared on his chair, and he didn't have his entourage, and I was worried there was nobody protecting him. So I went over to him and I put my arm around him, big dude, right? I put my arm around him, and all of a sudden the world starts spinning really fast, and all this time goes by, and then we're looking into each other's faces and we're just laughing. And I thought I traveled to like the Satyug for a second. Like he made time go by and showed me another time period, another yug, because we were just laughing at each other, looking at each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the first big dream that I had with him. But now I don't really think that he really came to me. I'm just very impressionable, and sure. I don't put him on that pedestal or give him, you know, he was trained as customs inspector. You know, that's a very corrupt profession. I know about it because I had a friend who was in it in Mexico. He was a customs inspector, and he said that people come and they say palm or pollo, or I think that's what it is, lead or silver. You have to take their money or they'll kill you, to not open their bags, you know, because they're selling drugs or whatever. You have to be corrupt basically to do that job. So he knows body language. He knows a lot of tricks to seem like he was reading your mind, because we
know that now because everything has come to light in our community.
Yeah.
Like what I hear you painting is quite a story of the mysticism in you. Like here, your family was in 3HO early, left at 5. I'm sure there was a story about them leaving. And then you go through all these horrible experiences out of the Dharma only to kind of have a nostalgia to want to come back, which is a beautiful thing in some respects. And so you remember like going to sadhana with your dad. You remember kind of like the certain aspects. And so here you are at school, and now you're getting personal attention from Yogi Bhajan directly, a male figure.
Oh, yeah.
This is a deal.
Yeah.
No,
yeah,
I'm
it's
pointing
a big
it out
deal,
because you're contexting it to also help us understand why it felt so special to you.
Yeah, and so I lived on BBG's house, and I had like the big bedroom, and above the bed was a picture of Krishna with his gopis. And when he arrived, I was late because I kept retying my turban. I was really nervous, and everyone was going to greet him. And I came late, and he goes, "Why are you late? You should be the first person here. You own the ranch." So he really did try to make me feel special.
Interesting.
But that was about it. I didn't interact with him a whole lot on the ranch other than that.
And how long were you there?
About 1 month.
And how old are you?
Like 16. Yeah, 16.
You had already been to Miri Piri, or this was after? Okay, so you went to Miri Piri and then came to the ranch and then went back to Miri Piri, or no?
Yeah, I went back to Miri Piri.
Okay, so you were just on the ranch for a little bit in the summer, went back to Miri Piri for another year. And how was that for you?
It was all right. I mean, I got bullied a little bit. There was a term I had, so Gert Edam and should I say their names? Is that okay?
It's just up to
There
you.
were two kids that saved rotten eggs and they had maggots on it. And they smashed it on my head and bolted me in my room. And so I didn't leave my room for a month. But other than that, I was super into meditating. I did a 40 days of 31 minutes of Sudarshan Chakra Kriya. And I was just so into sadhana and cleaning the Golden Temple. And I just loved it.
So
Yeah.
your daily practice, you were into yoga and meditation. That was a part of your curriculum. And then bullying was just stuff that happened and you had to deal with it. Was there any recourse or any?
Oh yeah, no, they didn't do anything to the girl that did it. Yeah, there was no
So it was girls who were bullying you, not guys. It was other girls.
no, it was one girl and one guy that
Got
did
it.
it, but it was mainly one girl. Like she was a bully to the girls, but I know the girls didn't have it nearly as bad as the guys. There was some of it. I mean, girls weren't really that nice, you know. I made some friends, but there were cliques.
So so you're getting really into practicing. I mean, Sudarshan Chakra Kriya is not easy, just like the longer meditations. And I've heard this from other, later year Miri Piri students, that the practice and meditation and cleaning the Golden Temple, these things became really your solace or your focus or your area of attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then,
I mean, it was beautiful. Like going to the Golden Temple at 3:00 in the morning and cleaning that temple. Whoa. The smells of the Golden Temple, just the feeling, like the atmosphere, the energy, there's nothing like it and you can't describe it. It was incredible.
and how was it for you that you hadn't been around all these years and now here you are back in the Dharma after basically leaving at 5 years old? Like, how was that experience for you?
Yeah, I was just eating it all up. I was trying to do everything, you know, and I was desperate to hold on to it because I didn't want to lose it again. So I went to school in India for 2 years, and then my mom wouldn't send me and my dad wouldn't send me my senior year. So I finished school in Albuquerque and I would wear my turban every day and I was doing sadhana. I thought the sadhana was helping the ghosts not bother me in the basement. So I now still have like insomnia because I would like train myself to, like, that sadhana routine is like you're training yourself to sleep deprive yourself. So even now I wake up wide awake and at like 3, 4, and it takes a while to get back to sleep, but I need 8 hours, not 3, like Yogi Bhajan made it seem like he did. I used to think like, oh, well, if I was a real yogi, I would only need 3 hours of sleep. And then like the secretary on the ranch that was in charge of me, who I consider grooming me, she told me that even when he was sleeping, he was reading books under the bed through osmosis. So I've always slept with books under my bed, thinking one day I'm going to master yoga and I'll be able to read through osmosis.
I want to clarify, do you look back now that everything has come to light and you know that a particular secretary was grooming you at that time or at the time? Do you know what I mean?
At the time, no, I never thought anything was wrong with it. I thought that everybody was crazy around Yogi Bhajan, but that he was a saint. And there was a teaching, he said that like the better the teacher is, the crazier the students are. So I thought they were acting crazy because their karma was being accelerated. So it was just things were happening so fast for them to advance that they were just all nuts around him. But I didn't feel good on the ranch, and it was mainly because the people made, like, around him, but I still was like in love with him, obsessed
Yeah.
with him,
Mesmerized by him. Sure.
mesmerized.
And
Yeah.
the comment of the secretary that was grooming you, that's only in light of what we know now, looking back.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Because you had made that comment, so I wanted to clarify that. Okay, so then what happens? So you come back, you end up not going to school. Weren't you planning to go back to school in India? And then what happens?
I was planning on going back, and I was, but my parents couldn't send me, they couldn't afford it. And so at solstice, I was talking to Guru Singh's daughter, and she goes, "Oh, why don't you ask my dad? He'll get you a scholarship to go to school in India." And he always would say, you know, he would raise money for those scholarships, saying anybody that wants to go to school, so that anyone who wants to go to school in India can go to school in India. And I wanted to go. And so I emailed him, and he just emailed me a yoga set. And I said, I'm doing 31 minutes of Darshan Chakra Kriya. And he tells me that's too hard for me, and I needed to do his sets. And I was thinking, I have a relationship with Yogi Bhajan. I don't need a relationship with you. Like, so he just kept sending me yoga sets and never talking about the scholarship. And then I got into a fight with my dad, and I emailed him, since he was trying to be my teacher. I thought I could email him about our fight, and he never responded. So I just wasn't confident. I thought something was wrong with me, you know, like, oh, of course I don't deserve this scholarship. And then that's why I didn't go back. And I had Gromrit Norway was waiting for me, and she was really sad that I didn't come back. And I didn't even know how to explain it to her, because I asked for the scholarship and all I was getting was yoga sets. You know, I didn't know how to like say, hey, like, what's going on? I was like, of course I don't deserve it. So she was upset that I didn't make it back. And we were supposed to be in a 2-person room together, and she didn't have a roommate. And so it hurt her. And I didn't even know how to explain it to her why I didn't go back.
Sure.
Or why I didn't tell her, you know, because I wasn't sure. And it was sad for me to not go back.
But it's not like you have direct access to Yogi Bhajan to say, can you pay me to go, like pay for me to go, or did it just not work like that? And you did you have a direct connection to Yogi Bhajan to try to get back, like to ask to be able to be sent back, or this was just your only avenue directly with asking for a scholarship from Guru Singh? Or
I didn't ask Yogi Bhajan, no, I just didn't think I deserved it. So later I was writing Yogi Bhajan, because he told me to write, or they told me to write him. And I was depressed. So he told me,
living right now in
Albuquerque with my mom and my stepdad.
So you're back with your mom and stepdad,
and I'm going,
you're wearing your turban and going to school
every
with a
day.
turban.
Yeah. And
what are your parents, what are they saying about that?
They were okay with it. I mean, my mom was like, she never really processed, or she never got deprogrammed. So she always kind of thought like it is a cult, but she didn't really know. She didn't know it was a cult. So she just let me do it.
Okay.
Because, you know, the lifestyle teaches like not drinking or doing drugs, and there's some healthy things that like totally. It can be better for people in some ways. I mean, it is better for people in those kinds of ways. And so she didn't mind it. And yeah, so I was depressed, and I wrote Yogi Bhajan, and he told me to see Shanti, who is a psychologist. Are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay.
I hear you.
Okay. And to talk to her. So I started seeing Shanti, and my agreement with her was she could tell him everything, right? I tell her about my brother, and she told me I wasn't raped. And that all women ask, like, she said, I wasn't raped. No woman is ever raped. You know, that I asked for it. And that was when I believed it, because I was groomed. And so I felt horrible about myself. And so Darshan lived in Arizona, and she kept inviting me to come live with her. So as soon as I graduated high school, and right after solstice, I packed my 87 Toyota Corolla, and I had $1,000. It's 2001. And I drove out here, and then I lived with Darshan and her dad and Gursimran for a little while. And then I moved into the fourplex.
This is in the Phoenix Ashram.
Yes.
This is my home stopping ground.
Yes.
I know the fourplex. I know what you're talking about. Interestingly enough, and I even know Darshan and her dad. Interesting.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah. So my neighbor was
What year was this, by the way?
2001.
2001. Okay.
Yeah.
You graduated high school, and you go there to try to plant somewhere so you're not living at your stepdad and your mom's place, which obviously
I had to leave. Yeah. I mean, I had nowhere to
sexually
go.
abused there for a long time. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know that it was sexual abuse as much as he was scaring me. And there was just one time that it seemed that I think there was a sexual abuse, but it was fucking scary.
No matter how many times it was, it sounds like is more body memory than actual cognitive memory. And whatever it was, it sounds like it was horrific.
Yeah, so I couldn't wait to leave, right? And then I didn't feel right in Espanola. So Darshan was my best friend at the time. So I moved to Phoenix, and
hold on, your
okay. All the kids that went to school in Miri Piri, they got jobs. You know, they were guaranteed a job.
What do you mean they're guaranteed a job? So the school says they're guaranteed a job, what, in dharmic businesses or what?
Yeah, in the dharmic.
So as a part of going to school there, that's kind of like an incentive?
Yeah. So Yogi Bhajan told Joda to hire me. And so I worked for Joda, and I actually got a better salary than most people in 3HO. I was making $9.50 an hour. And so I worked for him for 3 years, and it was awful. It was awful. Can you hear me? He acted like he could barely stand me. He didn't want to deal with me. I was just something he had to deal with. One time I was fighting with my dad over email, and his main secretary was bothered by it. And so she told him to like do something about it. And his solution was just to tell me, you're basically an untouchable. Yeah, that's what he did. Yeah. That was his answer to it. You're an untouchable. He didn't say I was an untouchable. He said, you are basically an untouchable. And yeah.
And can I pause you there for a second? Because you referred to that earlier about your family being untouchables. Can you give our listeners an understanding of what untouchables means, and just kind of like what this really contexts?
It means that that we've reincarnated the least amount of times, and we're learning the most basic lessons of life still. We're not advanced, and that like we're like, I don't know, I don't know how to describe
the low end of the totem pole, so to speak.
The lowest of the low. They clean the dead bodies in India.
Okay, but so that's the context then, right, Sarabjit? In India, in the caste system, the untouchables are the lowest of the low of all the castes. Yes. Is that correct?
Yes.
I didn't go to India, so I'm just clarifying. And a lot of our listeners might not even have any idea either. So in the caste system, the untouchables, you can Google that and learn all about the context of what that insult would mean, basically. Okay, so keep going. So you're working there. It sounds like he was he was told to hire you. And anyway, just putting that context there. Keep going. And you probably
Well, there was one time when his family went to Mexico on vacation, and they invited me. Good kid invited me, and I was hanging out with Gerdetem and Harai and another kid, Himit, who went to school, and we had two ATVs, and we were taking turns on it. And I flew off the ATV. We were in the sand dunes. I flew off the ATV and I landed on top of my head. And I had such a bad concussion. I thought I was in a video game for a long time. I was hallucinating really hard, but I didn't know what a concussion was. I was like 19, maybe.
Sure.
So I tell Joda what happened, and he shrugged his shoulders. I told him like I hit my head really hard and I thought I was in a video game, and he just went like that. I could have died.
So meaning like no medical attention or like making sure you're going to the doctor. And I think that's quite familiar in our communities too, that things just kind of didn't get addressed. We've been hearing that quite a bit. Thank you.
Yeah. And so that back injury got worse and worse. And then I felt completely disconnected to the community, to the yoga. Like the yoga wasn't working because I was starting to get in really bad pain. And then I quit Joda's and I tried to find a job, but I didn't really know how to dress appropriately. Like I was still neglected and still didn't know a lot of basic skills. And so I didn't want to move home, and I loved dancing. So then I became a stripper.
So while your time in Phoenix, before you transitioned to be, changing career into being a stripper, were you still wearing your turban this whole time? Were you still meditating?
I mean,
give us the context of like.
No, no, when I left, I still believed in it, but I was trying to become a stripper. So I was, trying to figure out how to shave right and stuff.
Okay, so you had left, but while in Phoenix, at first you're meditating, you're doing sadhana, you're doing all the things, you're working at Joda's, and then, or for his company rather, and then as that turns worse, then you decide to just kind of like get out of there and decide to go your own way. Like, was there like a transition out? Was there something? Was it just the overall kind of unhappiness?
No. So
you didn't.
So there was a guy in the Phoenix Ashram who was named.
I don't mean all the. Before we go into Phoenix Ashram, there's a lot of stuff having to do with stuff there, but okay. I just mean like in terms of your personal experience, your transition from being a devoted, I'm meditating daily, and was that how you were when you were there, or was that the transition? Did that change and it was like a slow transition out? You know what I mean?
It was a slow transition out. Yeah.
So as it was just as you were starting to feel like you were in this untouchable category and no support system, as much as they invited you to Mexico, you're not a part of their family. So you're obviously not feeling like you're a part of being taken care of as a whole. Like you don't have that support system in your life.
Yeah, I didn't have a support system. I mean, I think like Siri Vishnu one time tried to reach out to me, and Soul Singh tried to reach out to me, but I didn't trust anyone, so I was like, I'm on my own, and then I figured out how to make money. And
all right, so you decided to become a stripper, make some money.
Yeah,
but you're trying to figure out how to shave your legs to do that well.
Yeah. I mean, your privates are hard to shave if you don't know. You get razor burn, my learning curve for dancing was a pretty big curve,
So you worked in Phoenix there for 3 years, then you transitioned into dancing. And how long does this go on for?
I danced until March.
Okay, year. So that's why I'm bringing us full circle. So up until March, do you want to give us some context of your time in dancing? Because I found that fairly interesting.
I got addicted to, first I got addicted to opiates because my back pain was bad. So I ate about a bottle of Vicodin a day. And then Jay Shumsky fixed my back. So I ran out of opiates and I wasn't able to get any more. And then I went through my withdrawal. I didn't know I was addicted until I withdrew from it. And then I was able to get off of it after that because I couldn't get any and I didn't have back pain anymore. And then I dated a guy that sold cocaine and me and him would do, and then I got into coke for 5 years. I was doing cocaine all day long and drinking a ton. And then to go to bed, I would drink like half a bottle of Jaeger. It was excessive. I was doing a lot of ecstasy. I felt so guilty about dancing and leaving the Dharma that I just was heavily into drugs and drinking. And that lasted like 5 years. And I was pretty, I think I would have joined the 27 club, 28
I don't
club?
know what that is.
Oh,
I don't know what that was. I meant to ask you when I read that in your bio.
it's the age that like Janis Joplin died and all sorts of celebrities because of drug overdoses.
Ah.
So I was heavily into it. I couldn't stop. And then I had 2 DUIs and I got caught with a Percocet. And so I took the option to do drug testing for a year to get the Percocet removed from my record. And that's when I got sober and I started doing an hour of Kirtan Kriya a day to get sober. So that was when I re-embraced the yoga and the meditating. And I would use it and it balanced me out. So I felt like I got my cognitive faculties back.
Yeah.
And I was like, you couldn't tell that I went through the experience I did. Like it helped me to heal. But then I still struggled with other drugs after that, mainly drinking and yeah. But self-medicating, now I know like why I was self-medicating. I didn't realize, I mean, my my childhood adverse, what are those ACEs?
Yeah, the adverse childhood experiences.
Yeah, so it's out of 10, the score's out of 10.
Your ACE score is at a 10.
No, the top is 10. Mine is 7.
Yours is 7. Got
7. So it's very high.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't know why I was self-medicating until this summer. I always thought knew I was neglected, and I didn't know I was raped until the Michael Jackson documentary. That's when I learned what grooming was, and I was like, oh, I was groomed. I'm not incestual. That happened. And then Premka's book came out, and I'm not that much in touch with a lot of people in 3HO, but I'm Googling stuff because I still like to listen to Yogi Bhajan's lectures or why Guru Kar's Aquarian Sadhana, or whatever. I was Googling something and up pops, oh gosh, I can't remember her name. Skylife's video. So I watch it and I'm like, yeah, I could totally see what she's saying, but I know he was a master. I didn't believe it right away, the video. And then it linked to Philip Deslep's video. I don't know how to say his name, but anyway, and from Philip's video, I was like, oh, dang.
This is so academic and factual.
Yeah. And I'm like, that's, I believe that. And
so just for clarity for listeners to understand, these are videos that you were able to see early on in the disclosure of our community getting exposed, right? That's what these videos were, like basically early exposure videos.
Yeah. So then I got onto the Premka site and I read all the stuff, and I addressed my cognitive dissonance right away, that it was cognitive dissonance, because I'd taken a social psychology class, so I knew what it was and what it looked like. And
within yourself towards Yogi Bhajan.
Yeah.
Can you go back and explain? Can you give us, the listeners, a little more context on that? Like explain explain your stripper locker.
I had a picture of the Tradicon picture in the back of my locker. And so when I found out about everything in March, I went back in like June just to take the picture out and throw it away. I still have my locker. I'm pretty retired. I'm pretty much done. I mean, after COVID, it's not the same. And also I'm starting with a new career because I don't feel guilty about cutting hair. So I was like, oh, well, now I want to do hair.
Oh, wow. I just wanted you to share that because I think it really represents the state you've been in for so long, where you really revered him, and also just the context of leaving early and kind of not having it and kind of holding this special place for your earliest memories, how meditations really worked for you, how there were places in you where you knew you had an experience, but you linked it back to him specifically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was all into him. Yeah.
And that only changed this past spring when you read Premka and started really looking at videos and reading stories.
And that was incredibly hard for me. Like, I got triggered big time, and I didn't even know half the time what was going on around me. Like, I remember, like, I think I was drinking a lot too, because it was so heavy reading those stories. Like, I think at one time I was like reading it with one eye closed because I couldn't see straight, you know. It was heavy. That was the hardest thing I ever went through, was realizing it and hearing all those painful stories and realizing my life was worse than I even I even thought before, because I thought my life was so bad. But there's this one good thing. I met a real master. I knew a real yogi. I had a relationship with him. I had dreams with him. He made me feel special, you know, in person. So I thought I had meditated more in past lives than other people, even though with the community I still felt like an untouchable, but to the rest of the world I thought I was more advanced because of it.
You held this kind of like special thing inside, thinking that you had special knowledge that the world didn't have. And yet in the community where you had come from, you felt like nobody was accepting you. Like you felt like you were still an untouchable among our community itself.
But I always thought I don't need them because I had a direct connection with Yogi Bhajan. So I was okay with not being included in the cliques that were prevalent.
Yeah, which is also unfortunately a real common theme or thread in a lot of stories, is just all the layers and the cliques of belonging or acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So your whole world gets shattered this past March, and you're recognizing the cognitive dissonance of like seeing him one way and then realizing, oh, this one little nugget that I thought was pure is actually
the cause of all
is actually the foundational root of all of it, right?
Yeah. So
Wow.
I'm really happy that all this did come out.
Yeah.
And yeah, we need to be free from it.
Yeah, and talk it out loud. And I just want to say how brave it is to give us a glimpse into the things you've been through, because the things you've been through are not easy. And I know you're still processing it, trying to make sense of it, trying to have ground underneath you. And it's incredibly courageous to allow yourself to be seen in the middle, not when you figured it all out, but just in the middle.
What do you mean seen in the middle?
Like you're letting us see you in the middle of the process.
Oh yeah.
And that's courageous. And I think it's also really important because there are a lot of children from our community that have struggled with substance abuse, whether it's opioids or cocaine or alcohol or whatever, and have had nowhere to talk about it. And it's so important that we're talking about it because of the narrative that you've poignantly pointed out, that when one leaves, there's always this pull like, oh, the reason all my things are so bad is because I left the path.
Yeah, I believe that for sure. Mhm.
That's
There's
so
so
big
no,
because it can circle us back around to the nostalgia of longing to belong and thinking there's something wrong with us if something, the meditation isn't working or a sadhana isn't working or any of those things.
mhm.
So
Yeah, and like when my mom left, um, Gurbachan Singh told my mom that we were all gonna get raped,
what?
and
In
yeah,
New
and
Mexico?
yeah, and I remember like when I first started dancing, Harminder Joke came out and checked on me. He was
Okay.
the only kid that did. And I remember telling him, yeah, when my mom left the Dharma, your dad said that we were all going to get raped, and he was upset about it. And I was like, what? Why? It was true. It really happened. We all did get raped. So I really thought that like our problems were because we left the Dharma. I believed it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that shattered in March too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm loving that, knowing that I never was a Sikh, so I don't feel guilty anymore. That's nice. And I love yoga still. I haven't been able to meditate because I don't really know how anymore. Um, I liked Kurt in Korea, and I don't know how else to do it right. I don't know. I haven't gotten back to it. Maybe I will one day. But I still like yoga. But I prefer it with hip hop. No chanting. I don't want any psychobabble. Just show me the physical side and how to breathe, and I'm good on the rest. I'm a good person. I know I choose to be a good person. I
Okay, you
Yeah,
have to be a good person. We heard that.
yeah.
Things
I just
people.
I know I can navigate my own way in life, and not hurt people, not steal. Like those are things that I know I just avoid in myself. I don't need someone else to tell me how to act right. Like I have my inner compass is pretty good.
Well, it
So
sounds like you're discovering her too. You're discovering your inner compass now because some of these inner myths have been shattered
mhm.
to keep giving that power outside of you.
Yeah.
Hold on, you went away. Hold on. Beautiful, beautiful sharing today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there more before we move into your song? Is there more that you'd like to share with listeners, or anything else that you want people to hear?
So Darshan Singh, my dad, Henry Melito, died this summer. And when we left the Dharma when I was 5, he gave me the name Michelle, and he would always sing the song from the Beatles. So that's my song that I want to share.
Awesome. Well, we'll play that here in a second. Anything last you want to share in terms of what you want to share on your episode, or that you want listeners to hear about your own story?
No, I think it was good.
I know you had shared one aspect about before your dad died. Um, and so like one of what you wanted him to share with you before he died and he couldn't, something like this around Yogi Bhajan. Was there something around this?
Yeah, he'd always told me he hid cameras in Yogi Bhajan's television when when we got kicked out. And I thought that he hid the cameras. I thought he didn't see anything on the cameras, but that Yogi Bhajan found them and kicked us out. But when all this stuff came out, I confronted my dad and I was like, what did you see on those cameras? Like, what did you know? And I said, you could have liberated a lot of people, like
Mm.
knowing if you knew stuff, you saw something. And I need to ask my sister. I should have called her before this to ask her, because he confessed to her seeing abuse going on. him
On the
abusing women
cameras that he had put
on the
it
cameras. Yeah, that's why he came home with his head shaved and his beard shaved, or his haircut and his beard shaved, was because of what he saw on these cameras. He said that the CIA told him to put the cameras in the television. And I don't know if that's true or not, but that was the same time that the CIA did bust what's his name in Virginia. So
simultaneous bus that happened in,
yes,
from
yeah,
Washington, LA, New Mexico, Virginia, all at similar times.
yeah. And so right before he died, he apologized to me for blaming me to be that I was raped. He said, I wasn't, and he was sorry. We made amends, and he admitted he saw bad things on the cameras, and he never wanted to hurt anyone. He said the reason why he kept it a secret was because you just didn't say stuff back then. He just couldn't say it. He felt like he wasn't trying not to. I don't think he knew how to voice it, or the way he'd been silenced by someone. I don't know.
Well, and in context, this is 1987. You're talking about if you were 5 when they were
Mhm.
leaving, they're leaving around 1987. All this is around the time that Kate Felt and Premka's lawsuits are happening. Like there were a lot of people leaving, and there was a lot of shutdown of anything. So that makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
Meaning there wasn't really voice.
Mhm.
Wow, how interesting. How interesting. And then why do you think that your family didn't really get slandered or put down by Yogi Bhajan or anything like that?
Because my dad knew. Yogi Bhajan knew that my dad knew.
Hmm.
So I think that's the only. We had talked earlier about how you were like, how did you leave? Because the women that were sexually groomed, and I was on the path to being groomed on the ranch, those women were not allowed to leave, what you're saying, right? And he let me leave. The only thing I can think of is he knew my dad knew. So it was, um, that's what I think happened.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, again, I want to thank you for your courageous share today and for revisiting your life with us, and hope that you're taking care of yourself and getting the support and taking up SSSC on their therapy for any of the kids that went to school in India. I hope you know about that too.
What was it?
Well, the SSSC that's the head, the head board of all the organizations. They offer counseling for the kids that went to school in India. So anyways.
I know that I need to do that.
Yeah, take the resources while they're available, and hope they'll make them available for all the kids that didn't go to school in India too. But just in general, I think it's important, and then you're getting the support you need as well.
Thank you, Gurnishan. You're awesome. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm going to transition into your song. For copyright purposes, we won't be listening to very much, but there is an Uncomfortable Conversations podcast playlist on Spotify. So if you want to hear the full version of these beautiful songs that our guests share, please tune into the playlist. Let's go ahead and share. Well, your dog really loved it too. I want to thank you again, Sarabjit, for being our guest on today's podcast. Again, this concludes another episode of the Uncomfortable Conversations podcast, the untold stories of the 3HO Kundalini Yoga community. If you'd like to contribute to this broadcast, you can make a one-time or monthly donation at gurunishan.com/uncomfortableconversations. To be a guest on the podcast, please send an email to gn@gurunishan.com, and you can follow me on all platforms at Guru Nishan and subscribe and to support my work of creative truth telling at gurunishan.com.